Welcome to Impact on Ohio, the series where we highlight Ohio leaders from the State House to the U.S. Capitol. We sit down with dedicated public servants to tackle the issues that matter most to Ohio businesses. Brought to you by the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, the state's leading business advocate. We aggressively champion free enterprise, economic competitiveness, and growth for the benefit of all Ohioans. Stay tuned for insightful conversations that will shape the future of Ohio's business landscape. Get ready for Impact on Ohio, where business meets leadership, because Ohio's success is everyone's success. Hi, I'm Steve Stivers with the Ohio Chamber, and welcome to the Impact on Ohio video series. We're lucky to have House Finance Chair Representative Brian Stewart with us. Representative, welcome and congratulations on the budget, a very successful state budget that really helped move Ohio forward.
Well, thanks. Great to be here, and it's been a long 6-month process to get here, but we're on the other side and pleased with the process and proud of the product.
And a very inclusive process, I feel like, both for members between the House and Senate, between the parties. It seemed like everybody was trying to work together. Obviously, things sometimes get partisan, sometimes things divide between the House and Senate, but it seemed like the process worked pretty well. How did you feel like it went?
Yeah, I think Speaker Huffman really put in a great process for us to work within. You had almost every single member of the House sat on a committee that heard parts of the budget. It wasn't just through Finance Committee. We had different parts going to the committees that had the subject matter expertise. My staff tallied up. I think we did 500 plus meetings between January and May 15th, and probably another 100 after that. Met with 50 plus almost every member of the caucus, for a half hour at a time, making sure we knew what everybody's top priorities were. So I think everybody felt like they had more of a role and buy-in, and everybody could, at the end of the day, point to something in this budget that they got done. And I think you see that in the vote count.
That's great. Now, when you think about this budget, what are the top one or two things that you think are important to keep Ohio on the right track and keep Ohio moving forward and growing where there's opportunity for everyone?
Well, I think when you talk about Ohio being competitive, businesses, entrepreneurs, families who are in other states look at us and say, where am I going to have the best quality of life? Where am I going to have the greatest, cost of living? And so I think to get down to the second lowest flat tax in the nation is a big signal to the country that we're rolling out the welcome mat, that we want people to succeed here, find the American dream here. We listen to our residents when it comes to property taxes. There's more work to do, but I think this is, there's a lot of reforms and transparency and tools that we're adding to the toolbox to reduce people's property tax burden at the local level. And people have to remember, 100% of property taxes go to the local level. State government gets zero. So we have to take another bite out of that, but I think we made some really good progress in this budget. K through 12 public education, higher education. I think we've got a good balance here in sort of respecting residents and giving them, more of their own money to keep, but also making sure we're funding the essential functions of government.
So you're cutting taxes, you're growing workforce training at the K through 12 and higher education level, and making sure there's opportunity in Ohio. How do you feel about the future of Ohio now?
Well, I'm encouraged. I think that we are positioning ourselves to kind of reclaim our swagger on the national stage. I think that there are a lot of states that have, over the last couple decades, made a little more noise, and I think Ohio's kind of coming back and saying, we have it all here, and we can be just as pro-business, just as competitive. We've got, great big cities and great small communities, great rural areas, and I think we just need to kind of get our confidence back and start to tell our own story again.
Well, and as a small business person yourself, and an entrepreneur who's in a rural area that, your district is Madison and Pickaway counties, how do you think this budget worked for rural folks and for entrepreneurs and small business?
Well, I think that those tax relief things we've done help everybody. I also think a big thing we've done in this budget is this is a very pro-housing budget. When we are talking about, counties, even some rural counties are now are growing. We're seeing, Pickaway is now the second fastest growing county in Ohio. We need to be,
Andrew's going to help that even
right,
more, yeah.
Right. So when we bring Intel and we bring Andrew and we bring, battery plants to Fayette County, we got to have places for those folks to live. If you're bringing a small business here or even a smaller operation, you're not going to be successful if you can't find workers who can live affordably near where you are. So we have a $100 million loan program to kind of encourage local governments to adopt friendlier housing policies in some of these rural areas. We have a $20 million program to do the water lines and the roadways and the sewer hookups and all the kind of infrastructure things that are preventing some housing projects dedicated towards our mega project sites in the state. So I think these are, and we've also done some structural reforms to say that when we make a decision in the community, we have a lot of robust process at the local level, a lot of opportunities for folks to chime in at the township and city levels when it comes to zoning. But once those decisions have been made and once elected officials have said we think that housing is important here, we need to let those decisions stand and grow and build and move forward.
Yeah, I think you've done a lot in this budget. Last budget, a lot of stuff around subsidized housing. We created a low income tax credit. How that's important. But the thing I love about this budget is you really focused on unsubsidized housing that, people that are working in the workforce need and are demanding, and you're helping incentivize local governments to do things the right way and helping make sure the process works so it can't be abused by just a few people. So I'm excited about the future of housing in Ohio, and we have a shortage. So that's a big, big deal. So you've served in the military. Thanks for your service. Had a successful legal career, and now you're serving in leadership in the House as budget chair. How have your different experiences impact your leadership and sort of your thoughts on public service?
Yeah, so you and I were in Iraq at the same time, and thank you for your service as well. I've always loved my country, but I think when you serve in a country that hasn't had freedom and you see that compare and contrast. I came home when 6 guys I served with did not, and so that has always motivated me to want to give back, to serve. It makes your love of country a little more tangible, even a little more real, right? And so that's kind of a motivator. I think that it does kind of keep good perspective, right? When you've been in a war, even some of the tough things we're dealing with at the State House, I think are a little more manageable. I think you have a good perspective on the things that really matter and the things that don't. Being a lawyer, I think it's been good training how to win arguments, how to frame arguments, how to persuade people, how to tailor your message to certain legislators have different objectives than others, and how do we kind of give everybody something in this budget that they can hang their hat on and say, this is worth my yes vote. And so, and obviously then to be able to go and advocate for it. We had a pretty lively floor debate, and I was pleased with how it went. You saw kind of two different visions, and hopefully, being in court most of my other time when I'm not in the State House helps you be a good advocate for that. And just, a way to be a leader. I think that, folks who've been in the military generally have a sense that you've seen hopefully some good leadership and ways that translates here in government as well.
Well, it seems to be working. You guys had a great process and a lot of buy-in. So as we look at the Ohio economy, one of the continuing struggles and the things that we hear from our members is about workforce. How do you think this budget is going to impact both long-term talent development and short-term on workforce programs? Is there anything you want to highlight on workforce that you think is important in the budget?
Yeah, we were really, I was really supportive of the governor's merit scholarship expansion that he proposed. And when you see, the different chambers kind of had different tweaks on that, but at the end of the day, I really wanted to steer us back kind of towards what the governor proposed, which is every single, high school senior that graduates in the top 10% of their class is automatically admitted to any public university they want to go to. If you're in the top 5% of your class, you get a $5,000 scholarship every single year. We know from the data that if we keep Ohio high schoolers in an Ohio college, they're very likely to stay in Ohio. And so that's, the best way to grow your population is keep the people here who are already there, right? Have them keep their, start their families here after college. And so we were very pleased with that. I think that's a way for us to instill some of that pride, and it's really cool to be able to go to my 16-year-old daughter and say, we want you to stay in Ohio so bad, our state policy is going to be we're going to incentivize and value you staying here. K through 12 education, $600 million more in public education. You wouldn't know it from some of the coverage and some of the debate, but the reality is the second highest expenditure we have in this budget after Medicaid is K through 12 public education. And then beyond that, we are expanding childcare options. So we've had some expansions of publicly funded childcare that I know the business community has said, how do we make sure that we can get that labor participation rate up? So we added $100 million into the existing structures for publicly funded childcare, and we think that's a good thing.
So let's talk about childcare a little bit. So you both increased some funding for childcare, but there were some loosening of restrictions for in-home childcare that helps in rural areas too. Can you talk about how those two together should help everybody no matter where you live? Yeah,
I think there's always going to be a lively debate about the extent to which, what do we focus on when it comes to childcare? We have members that want to put more money directly into it. We have some that say, hey, let's just get government out of the way and we don't want to do the spending part. And I think we've done a blend of both here. We adopted a tri-share pilot program that I know the Chamber and others have worked on, where we're going to kind of see how this would work, right? We have the employee being on, having some skin in the game with regard to childcare, the employer having skin in the game, and then state government coming in as a partner as well. And let's see how that goes. Let's see how many people adopt that and want to kind of go down that road in the
It's worked well in Kentucky.
In the employer
space. It works in Ohio.
That's right. That's right. So, but beyond that, I think we want to obviously we want to have quality childcare options, but we don't want to have so much government restrictions and criteria and boxes to check that we're making it impossible for just good people to provide options. If there's a retired teacher that wants to, watch kids in her home, we should find a way to let that happen. That person is qualified to be a child care provider. They shouldn't have to jump through 9,000 bureaucratic hoops to do so. And so part of what we're focusing on is not just throwing money at the problem, but actually expanding the number of child care providers. And we think that is going to be a good free market way to bring costs down and expand access.
Thanks for your work on child care holistically. We hope it makes a difference in the labor participation rate. So on a lighter note, you're a known movie buff, and you used to have a movie blog. Do you still have that?
Podcast.
A podcast. I didn't know if you still had the podcast or if you were too busy now to do that. But
I'm on a 3-week hiatus from the Office Grunts movie podcast.
Is there a movie that has had any kind of lasting impact on how you view leadership or your decision making? Any movie that made a difference for you?
I would say two. So I think Lincoln, the Spielberg Lincoln movie, is the best movie about America. Best movie about American politics. There's a scene in the basement with Thaddeus Stevens talking about, what's the value of knowing true north if you just end up in a swamp, and it's a good sort of very well written kind of recitation on how government works and how compromise works and how you sort of take the long view to get to the right place. And I think that you've seen that here. We haven't eaten the whole elephant of some of these problems in this budget, but we've made major progress, and the next budget will build on that, and the next budget will build on that as well. And then Master and Commander, I think, is the best movie about leadership in general, just leading by example, making tough decisions, sticking with decisions and being decisive, and just how you have to interact with those around you. It can be a little lonely sometimes being the boss, but I think that we need people with the courage to make tough decisions and to have the ability to be proven right in the long run.
Two great movies that do have great leadership lessons. Now the most important question of our video series, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
I take the controversial view that it is not, but I watch it at Christmas anyway. But it has a lot of Christmas aesthetics, but the themes are not about brotherly love and the birth of Jesus and those things.
All right, well now it's resolved.
There you go.
One final question. Budget or not, what do you think deserves more attention at the State House right now? What's not getting enough attention?
I think I've always known that Medicaid and entitlement spending is a huge driver of state spending and a huge a challenge when the more it grows. And I think that having an up close front row seat, I think that even more. When you look at all the funds coming into Ohio from the state and federal government, we're spending $1 out of every $2 we have in the state on Medicaid. And as an entitlement program, there's only so much we can do to keep those costs down, because if somebody qualifies for the program, if you have, you budgeted for, 100,000 and, 6 people have an aneurysm, your costs are going to be higher. And so we really have to be more dialed in on preventing fraud, preventing waste, preventing abuse. And on a more positive note, I think we need to be doing more to kind of sell Ohio. I think that we need to get our swagger back. I think that we have amazing things across the state that, I've spent my entire adult life watching, pure Michigan TV commercials.
By the way, thanks for your commitment and the result in you invested more in travel and tourism funding for Ohio. We at the Chamber think that has a really good return on investment. The numbers bear it out. Look at Michigan, look at West Virginia. Thanks for that commitment. You increased funding in a big way for the first time in 20 years, I think.
That was a really big priority for me. We went into the room and kind of started making the case to the whole leadership team of, we don't often go into that room and say, hey, here's a program that really needs a funding increase. But we looked at the states around us, and why are we surprised that other states are doing better in tourism when we're spending 15, 20, 25% of what Kentucky and Indiana do? We have a great story here in Ohio. We have to go tell it. And I think that our best days are ahead of us, but we've got to be more confident. We've got to tell our story. We've got to be proud of what we have in this state. And I think if we tell that story, other people are going to hear it. And I think you're going to see Ohio kind of reclaim its place as one of the leading states in the country.
Well, thanks for your leadership on that front, and thanks for your leadership on the budget. Thanks for being on our video series.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes another edition of Impact on Ohio. Please stay tuned for our next one coming up in a few weeks, but I hope everybody watches this one. Representative Stewart, thank you so much. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If you have an idea for the Impact on Ohio video series, email us anytime. You can also scan the QR code to take you directly to the YouTube page and watch Impact on Ohio.